Hey guys, it's Joe. I'm actually in China right now. We're building out our Asia operations. But if you've seen our video for Mersby Schwanen, you saw the interview with Cristina, which was the costume designer of the pilot for the bear. I just found her so charismatic and passionate and very knowledgeable of her craft. This is something a little different, but here is the full-length interview with Cristina. So let's get started. Cristina, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. Could you do a little bit of introduction on yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Cristina Spiridakis. I'm a New York-based costume designer, and I was the costume designer for the pilot episode of The Bear. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, and how did you get across or come across the project itself?
I'm represented by Independent Artist Group in Los Angeles. My agent is named Julian, and he sent me the script. And it's so interesting because that script it's not written like any script I've ever read. Like even on the page, you could feel the tension. It had me wondering about how they were going to shoot it, what they were going to do. My first thought was like, with all of the cooking, was like about hand doubles. Like you just start to think about things like instantly, which by the way, let me preface by saying anybody who knows anything about the show knows there are no hand doubles. If that's all Jeremy and Io and everybody, they all worked in kitchens, they all learned how to do it. But yeah, so essentially when I receive any script, I read it and then you just sort of start like researching images. I mean, starting with the basics of like, looking for imagery on chefs. Like I have my idea of, what I thought they were going to wear but this is a kitchen, in a very small place that isn't like a big fancy kitchen. And so in my head, it was like just a plain clothes kitchen, especially to tell the story of Carmy coming from these fancier kitchens and this being like his brother's restaurant being a far less, formal operation. So everybody's there kind of in plain clothes. And then finding so many images of chefs in basic white t-shirts and just like, black Carhartts and the Berkeys. And like, the thing is like, it's a look. Like in regards to that combination, I'd love to take credit for it, but that's like a very based in reality situation, which a lot of my research for me, everybody does it differently. I just like fall down rabbit holes on like Instagram and Pinterest. I Google chefs, I Google restaurants. That show was based in Chicago. When I did the interview, when I prepped for it, I was actually in Atlanta working on a job, and I would kind of like look into kitchens like in less formal places that we were at, just kind of eyeing like what people were doing. And then, you put together a presentation based on the script and what you think is important in the script and the ideas you want to convey. And then I had a call with Chris Storer, the showrunner and director, and one of the producers. And they didn't look at my boards at all. We just like chatted. Chris had seen them. That's very unconventional. It's usually like you do a whole presentation. And then I had a second call with Chris and Joanna Kalo, his co-showrunner, and we just sat there and talked about the correlations between the film industry and the restaurant industry and the types of people that are attracted to this kind of work and how they wanted to shoot the show. And we just chatted probably for like an hour and a half. And sometimes when you get on these calls, you don't know which way it's going to go. But like this, talking to them felt like it was just like a very wonderful conversation. And, just talking about Chris's sister being a chef and just sort of everything, all the backstory on it. Yeah, and then I got to go to Chicago to do the pilot. We shot it in June and July of 2021.
When it comes to the character itself, you talked about visiting all these restaurants and seeing it from maybe a third person perspective. But from Carmy's mind, what made you choose the specific kind of garments that you chose in terms of like the denim, the shirts, and everything?
So Carmy, like to come at the clothing from a character perspective before even the practicality of filmmaking, it's like in the pilot, you find out that he's, it's like he's selling this like very like, high end jeans and the like very, very rare denim. And it's like an interest in like heritage brands and quality and history. And that's kind of where that came from. Carhartt doing like the pants that he's wearing, like that. It was just kind of like a given, but they were Carhartt work in progress. They weren't just like standard workwear. In regards to the t-shirt, I've bought that t-shirt before for other shows because it's legitimately like one of the most perfect white t-shirts ever. And we were sitting there talking about it, and I had bought it previously from Self Edge here in New York, downtown. We were in Chicago, so we ordered one from Self Edge, and we tried the MERS, just like a regular old Hanes undershirt, Hanes for Supreme, and then another company whose t-shirts I love called Good Life, who actually was started by like a childhood friend of mine. They also make very beautiful t-shirts. And it's just like when Jeremy tried it on, it just was like the clear winner. Like it fits him like it was made for him. The only change we made was we shortened it a little bit. And it just really felt right. And then the blue aprons we learned about when we got to the show and we started, you do research. We were talking to Chris Storer, and it's like these specific blue aprons that are worn for prep. And so we bought them, the place that they come from. And it was very important to Chris to make a show as authentic as possible to that experience. And so, we just kind of really leaned into that. And we went to the restaurant, like a block away from the production office. We went where the exterior of the beef is. It's like we went in there and we went in their kitchen and took pictures of those people's shoes to give to our Asia dyer. Like we just, got into the details of the character work. And you just ask your writers, like you ask for as much backstory as you can get to really try to come at a character from that perspective.
It's so interesting. I love that the way you approach it, it's very, you did present various options, and really it's about crafting and looking for that like aha moment when you're dressing the character. For the MERS B shirt, the being loop wheel, that's like deep fashion. You definitely brought, like you single-handedly brought that, I think, into mainstream.
It's a beautiful shirt, and Self Edge, like the store itself, is like very quality heritage brand menswear. And I had been there a few times for other shows that I was designing, shows I was assisting on. But I remember it's like, oh, like hot, rugged Brooklyn bros. Like, where are they going to get that? It's like, oh, they're going to go to Self Edge, and so it was just a place to go. Like, oh, this company is like workwear but fashion. Who's going to have that? You know, they. It's a great location, and I had been introduced to the MERS T-shirt by a designer that I used to assist a few years before that. But it was my first thought. It was like we're talking about white T-shirts, and I was like, oh wait. And then also just the cut of it being very classic and beautiful, and just for Jeremy's build and where they cut the arm, proportions matter. And I think that it's really interesting that that's something that people don't really think about. I was actually just emailing literally right before we got on this call with the people at MERS, because we're getting t-shirts for Crystal Lake for my current show, and they mentioned that they have a 215M, which they did the hem on it, like it's closer to the fit of the shirt on the show, which is amazing, and I love that. It's just, yeah, people don't realize proportions make all the difference. But it feels different. Like if you touch it, it feels different. The quality is different. And the fit is different, and it's very beautiful. And it just, he put it on, and it's, I mean, as everybody knows, looks like it was made for him. So that, I mean, that's really, I'm excited. And the kindest people in the world own that company, and they're so wonderful. And it's been really fun to stay in touch with them and collaborate with them. And Courtney Wheeler, the series costume designer, was one of my closest friends. Like, they've maintained that relationship, obviously, because it's still a big part of the show. And we see them whenever we're in New York all at the same time. It's really nice. They're just spectacular people.
I love how it's just like the show is a lot about family. It's like within your industry, you've created a very tight knit family
Very much
around
so.
something as
Yes.
simple as a shirt.
It's funny. I mean, that first Halloween, Courtney and I, like, I walked down into the subway platform. The first man I saw was somebody dressed as Carmy for Halloween, which was so wild. And then Courtney and I would text them to each other all night because we were very, very excited.
Amazing how one simple choice can create such like ripples within an industry.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I certainly feel that way. I'm so proud of the work, that I did on the pilot. And when you start collaborating, like you feel something. You can feel when it's different. You can feel when everybody there is like excited and like hyped on what you're doing. But yeah, you truly just like never know. And then when I got a cut of the pilot a couple months before it premiered, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, now it's like they did it. They did it exactly as we shot it. The tension is there, everything is there. Chris is phenomenal storyteller, wonderful director. But yeah, a woman contacted me a couple weeks after the show came out. I don't even know when, and all of a sudden it was just like Courtney and I were getting email requests constantly to talk about it. And it's like you just kind of never know what's going to connect with people, and it's been really nice. And I appreciate what it's done also, can I just say, for like regular men. Do you know what I mean? Who like didn't think it was mattered. And then all of a sudden, like, I've got like dudes I'm friends with being like, dude, talk to me about this t-shirt, like send me the link. And I'm like, all right, you've been wearing the same free t-shirts as long as I've known you, but like, yeah, sure, get it. Uh and I've kind of appreciated that. And I also think in general, as clothes become more expensive, I think people want to invest more in pieces that will stay with them. And I think, especially with menswear, I feel like menswear in the last couple of years has really become much stronger. Heritage brands have become stronger. And I feel like that's, like, I mean, brands like Red Wing obviously have been around for like a million years, but this more sort of like attention to like quality and fit. And maybe I'm generalizing about, the men in New York City, but like, I've lived in a lot of cities because of my job. And I think that's been a cool thing to see.
Especially that shirt, it's what it outwardly communicates to the world of who you are as an individual.
I'm a handsome bro that cares about fit.
Yeah,
That's what
I
it
think
says. Yeah.
so. And when it comes to like the process itself, you mentioned you went through several different shirts. How much feedback does like Jeremy have in terms of the selection of the final process from just even a general costume design perspective?
As your lead actor, it it's a very collaborative experience. Like I spoke to Jeremy before we fit him. I sent him the board. I mean, the fitting was very funny because that's all that was in the fitting room was like 5 t-shirts, 5 pairs of black pants, and like 4 pairs of black Birkenstocks. And we were laughing because he's like, this is the fastest fitting I've ever had in my entire life. Like, because that was it. That was the look. Oh, and the apron, of course. But we, I talked to him ahead of time. I sent him the board that I'd made, and I told him, just about the conversations I'd had with Chris, and he talked about the experience that he had had staging in kitchens and his thoughts on it. What I always say is you can start with an idea. As soon as an actor is cast, you have to imagine that actor in that space. And in a lot of interviews and on a lot of shows, I constantly remind the director and the producers and everybody, like, you can't be married to an idea or an outfit. Like you can't have this one specific sweater that was on my boards in your head. One, because those are inspiration pieces, they're not always instantly available. But also, actors, every actor comes at a role from a different perspective. Everybody like embodies clothes differently. And you could be like, oh, that's the look, that's the look. And they put it on. It doesn't look like a real person, or it looks like a caricature, or the clothes are wearing them. Or the worst thing is you can tell when an actor doesn't like what they have on. They all have different kinds of things. Like I worked with one actress that would just like look in the mirror, and so it doesn't serve you to leave your actor out of the conversation, because what ends up happening then is that like the result is never convincing. It comes through in their performance. I always tell people like my job is over when they step out of their trailer to go to set, because then it's time for them to do their job. And my job should not be hindering theirs. I'm there to help them feel that character, be that character, visually relay that. So like once they get dressed, to go to set and I take a look at it the first time we're going to roll on it. And I'm like, let's do this. You want to change an earring? You want to roll the pants up? And we look at it together. I go with them. They roll on it for the first time, which is called establishing. But the minute we walk out of that trailer and I walk them to set, last looks, that's it. And I don't ever want their costume to be the hindrance to their performance.
Do you ever get nervous?
Constantly.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, constantly. And you're constantly like, I remind myself not to get married to an idea. Like I had a concept that I loved for a show I did recently, and like the actress just like wasn't what was in her head. It wasn't how she wanted to play the part. And, you know, it took myself a minute to pivot. It took the producers a minute to pivot. Everybody was like, "Oh, but just try it on." And she was like, "I don't know. I don't like it." We were like, "Oh, all right." And like we reconceptualized it. But it was hard because everybody, myself included, I had to remind myself like this was an idea that I came up with before this person was cast. But a lot of times you can get casting and you're like, wow, that's not who I pictured. All right, cool. The show that I just finished in New Mexico is called The Burrows, and it's the Duffer Brothers' new show. So it's like the follow-up to Stranger Things. And there was a character that I pictured one way and I pitched one way. And then they cast Bill Pullman, who was the exact opposite sort of what had been scripted, like what had been in the script. And then it was rewritten and reconceptualized for Bill. The other guy was kind of like high socks with sandals, like everybody loved him, like good time guy, Hawaiian shirts, like the whole thing. And like, you're not gonna do that to Bill Pullman. Like he's the handsomest man alive. He played the character in a different way. Oh my God, he's so delightful. He's so delightful. And he played it in a totally different way. He came at Jack from a different perspective. So we pivoted. We pivoted for Bill. I'm not gonna, you can't make somebody fit into a characterization that's no longer how they play that character.
Do you guys have any other questions? Sorry, I have like a whole team back here. Is there anything
Hi,
we haven't touched on yet?
Well, you sort of touched on it a little bit, but I was kind of curious about like what sort of the process is for like how much you alter clothes versus just using ones that are like directly available.
All the time.
I will say it was extraordinary that the only alteration, to speak to how amazing that t-shirt is, all we did was shorten it. But 9 times out of 10, well, I guess, I don't know. To speak for myself as a designer, I very rarely leave an article of clothing how I found it. Like, you'll start with a blouse and it's like, oh, sometimes, you don't have the biggest budget or you found a blouse. It could look more expensive, but just this is my PSA to everybody. If you want something to look better or more expensive, just change the buttons. You don't have to do it yourself. You take it to a tailor. But like you can have a blouse that is very beautiful, but the buttons are super cheap. Switch it out to a better button, narrow the sleeve. Sometimes like we'll change the collar. I paint a lot of things. I dye a lot of things. I love a craft project, but I'm a deep alterer. Like my alterations go in hard. When we did when I designed the last season of High Maintenance, we didn't do a lot of alterations on that show because they're meant to look like real people. So whereas your instinct is to hem a pant, I was like, this guy owns a bodega. His pant wouldn't break well. He'd just like wear his pants. And it was a funny thing to get used to. And Courtney, the series designer on The Bear, was my assistant designer for a long time. And so Courtney and I've done a bunch of our shows together. And it was just so funny because she's like, I keep forgetting, like, oh, great, no more pant hems. I was like, check, like, we're not hemming anybody's pants unless it's like a really, somebody who should be like perfectly tailored and getting into the character ideas of how people even wear their clothes. But in general, yeah, at any show, especially like any show where there's suits, we go in so deep. We go in so deep on those. You're slim in sleeves, you're slim in bodies, like you're opening up shoulders, you're doing wild things. But I also do believe that the average person thinks that that's out of possibility for them. And it really isn't. Most of the time you have a dry cleaner or a place, local tailor. There's a new company in New York called Alts. I haven't been, but I know people that have gone where it's like, you can go with your regular clothes and just be like, oh, I wish these jeans weren't so long. And they'll hem them the way we hem them, which is called a Hollywood hem, which is how you do it and maintain the real, you know, at the bottom of your jeans is worn. If you just flipped it up and sewed it, it never looks the same. I don't know what professional tailors call it, but we call it a Hollywood hem. Just things like that. Like, I think people think that that's not available to them, but it definitely is. And it's not always that expensive, but also if you really like something, it's kind of worth going and have it, make it work for you.
Christina, this is super interesting. I think, coming from fashion, we develop a lot of fashion products for brands, and we come at it from a commerce perspective, but to hear it from a individual, obviously character perspective, plus just how the inner workings of costume design works, it was super interesting. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
My Instagram is Christina_costumes, but it's Christina with no H, CRISTINA_costumes. That's my Instagram. My website is linked to that. And my current project is called Crystal Lake. It's with A24 and Peacock, and it's the prequel series to Friday the 13th. We take place like 1971, 1972. This is actually the first period show I've ever designed. Like, I've worked on many. I had the honor of being an assistant on A Complete Unknown and working for Colleen Atwood on Kiss of the Spider Woman. But as the head designer, this is my first period show, which has been really exciting. It's really bloody. It's really wonderful. This is why we have this like camp backdrop in our fitting room, which is, it's funny. And it's going to be really, Linda Cardellini is our lead actress playing Pam Voorhees, and she's a dream. And so I don't know if you like gore and you like Friday the 13th in the 70s, like this is going to be the place to be.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
It was so nice to meet you.
I see you're based in New York.
Yes, our office is in Jersey City. I'm in my fitting room because my new show is the prequel to Friday the 13th. We're gonna go shoot at all the original New Jersey locations and do all that, but it comes with a sick view of the city.